I'm with a friend of mine that was born there, and he lived in Nairobi, so he could speak several dialects. And so he's trying to tell the guy, hey, he's not from here, and they would not believe it. They would not believe it. It was like, no, you're trying to have fun with me, and I finally had to pull out my passport and show him my passport before he would finally believe. They would call me Mzungu.
Oh yeah, Mzungu.
I hated that. I really hated that. I really did not like that when they would call me that.
But you are.
Yeah.
I'm always Mzungu.
Yeah, definitely. But I didn't like being called that. For me, it was like a separation. And it was like, no.
So what took you to Kenya?
Wanting to go home. I taught for a little while in a preparatory school, private prep school. Taught English to students that were preparing to come to either Europe for college or Canada or here. My teaching experience was interesting. As a tool to teach English, especially American English, I used rock and roll and rap, as a tool. Because one of the points that I wanted to get across, especially in America, English, it was more about how you said a thing than what you said that would get across what you're trying to say. Whereas, British English, is more monotone, it's boring to me, whereas American English is quite lyrical, musical, we have more flair, and so I used rock and roll and rap. First day I did that, I had this rap playing, and I hate rap, but I had this rap playing, I had the class rapping, and the headmaster walks by, and I can see him, you can see him at the corner of my eye. He walks by, he hears this rap, and hears his students in there rapping, and he just stops, backs up, and he's glaring in at me. Oh, what the hell are you doing in there? Finally he couldn't take it anymore, so he comes in, he pulls me out. What are you doing? What are you doing? I explained it to him. He was really hesitant, but then when he saw the way the students were really enthused about trying to rap and trying to get the words and whatnot, he said, oh, okay, this works.
Yeah, I think Black America's English is more lyrical than white.
Well, yeah.
It's got more style to it. It's more stylized, more interesting. I could see how that would work great with the Kenyan kids.
Oh yeah, it was nice. It was really nice. I enjoyed it.
Sorry to interrupt, but the audio, I have it turned down all the way as much as I can. It still appears like it blows out. Would you mind speaking a little bit?
Yeah, would you like for me to talk about it?
Yeah. Okay, so let me...
Why is that? If channel 1 is basically on 0.
Where do you get that mic at?
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit high, I guess. But I'd rather have it too high than too low.
So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Switch channels, please. Let's bring that in the other channel.
Pryor, I don't know if you ever really got into him, but he talks about when he went to Africa, and he said he was in this Jeep, and he was riding around, and he was looking around, and he saw these people, these beautiful black people, and there was faces that looked familiar to him, and all of a sudden he was overwhelmed with emotion and he cried. I had that moment. My first day there, we was coming from, we were going, I had a driver come to pick me up, and we were going from the airport to Kalenjin land, and they decided to detour through the Masai Mara. And first we went through the city, of course, and we're going through the city, and I'm looking, and you got these black people, there's shops, there's black people behind the shops, and we're going through the Masai Mara, you know, and the Masais, they still, a lot of them like to dress in their traditional garb, and I'm looking, and then we see the wild animals, and then we went through this little village, and all of a sudden, it really did hit me. Everyone that I see, you know, these people look just like me. They own this land, they work this land, they govern this land, and that reality, it was overwhelming. And I just start bawling. I'm sitting in the back seat, and the driver, he pulls over. Are you okay? Are you okay? Yeah, I'm great. But it's like, you know, I spent a lot of my childhood in Portland, and here, you know, I could get in the car and I could drive for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles, and I might run across one black guy who owns, you know, a little shop or something. Drive some more miles and wait a couple of weeks or whatever, and I might meet another black guy who has a PhD. Wait another couple months, and I might meet another black guy who has, you know, some type of ideal of how to change the economy for the betterment of all people. You just don't have any examples here in Portland. Now, you know, down south in Georgia, of course, you know, in Atlanta, it's a whole different animal. But in Portland, you know, I spent a lot of my childhood in Lake Oswego, or as we affectionately call it, Lake No Negro, or not so affectionately, actually. And it's just growing up, it just didn't have it. Even going to university here, I mean, this is like liberal central. And I told a friend of mine, I've been blessed. I've traveled around the world. I've literally been on every continent. I've lived in about 4 countries, visited about 15 others. America is the only place, and especially Portland, Oregon, is the only place that I never, not for a second, lose sight of the fact that I'm a black man. Never. It's always with me. Every moment, every waking moment, I'm aware that I'm a black guy. I'm talking to you right now. I'm a black guy talking to a white man who has a PhD, and he got a camera in my face, and he's looking for a story. You know, I'm a black guy. I'm not just a man sitting here. I'm not just a man that's trying to get an education. I'm a black man trying to get an education. Where's on you? Where's on you? Just want to be a man. Just want to be liked because I'm a nice guy, or disliked because I've been an asshole to you today. You know, whatever, you know. Get tired of being a black man. Just want to be a man, not a human being. Not a black man, a man.
You know, Whoopi Goldberg went to Africa. Do you remember what she said when she came back?
Not quite, no. But
I'd be interested in your response. Whoopi Goldberg said, you know, I came back from Africa and I realized I am not an African American, I'm an American.
mm-hmm.
It was a very interesting comment. What do you think she meant by that?
There's a huge separation, and I can understand that kind of sentiment, and I run across that sometimes. You know, a resistance to wanting to identify with Africa. We are so many generations removed from the homeland that our experience, it feels like Africa is no longer in our DNA, our psychological and sociological makeup. And for many African Americans, or black Americans, I guess that's their reality. For me, that my home, the way that I was raised, that just wasn't the reality. I was raised very much to be an African who happened to have been born in America. I was raised knowing our stories. I was raised adhering to our traditions. Not all of them, but many of them. I was raised with a lot of the old values, even more so than some of my cousins that were born there, who were born in the city. A lot of their values are very westernized now. I have a very small town, old world way of looking at things and the way that I was raised. By the time I was 13 years old, I mean, my family was in politics, lobbyists and this kind of stuff, and we socialized intimately, mainly with other Africans, very Pan-African type of way from all different parts, and not too many Americans. By the time I was 13 years old, I had already had 3 or 4 girls promised to me as my wife. You know, my best friend at one point, you know, female. I think we were like 10, 11, somewhere in there. Our parents had arranged for us to be married, and we grew up laughing at that ideal. You know, we were like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna marry you." Not gonna happen. But when I got older, if I would have pressed the issue, I probably could have married her. You know, it's kind of an interesting way of being raised. I was always America has never really felt like home. I've always been a man without a country. Not quite African, not quite American. Most black Americans find it hard to relate to me. Because I am so dark, I am so black. Most whites, you know, whether they realize it or not, fall on their old cliches about who I might be when they first meet me. They see me, I'm very black, you know, I got, you know, the big lips, the broad nose, and they make a lot of assumptions based on that. It's kind of lonely. Never really, but Whoopi, that was the original question. Whoopi, I think, she's so far removed that it's hard for her to relate. It would be much the same way I feel. It's foreign. She is more American than she is anything else. People raised in this country, they become enculturated, you know, saturated with the American dream and the American way of looking at things. If that's your reality, then that's what you are. You know?
What message would you like to give? Yeah, it's more interesting actually. What message would you like to give to a bunch of young black kids who think America's the only place in the world? What do you want to send? What do you want to say to people?
The message that I actually do give them when they'll stop long enough to listen to me: go home, and learn.
By saying, when I talk to young black guys,
When I talk to young black guys, one of the first things I tell them is go home to the motherland, see what it's like, see what the people are like, see what they look like, see what they talk like, see what their dreams are, see what their drive is. Understand that drive, and that's really important right there. That drive, if you start understanding that drive, it'll wash away any tendency toward what I call the whining of the black man. Sometimes my people, I hate to say, have a very accusatory tone to them when it comes to white people. The white man won't let me do this. The white man won't let me. Man, screw all of that. You know, I'll be damned if a white man gonna tell me what I'm gonna do and what I'm not gonna do. What I want to do is what I'm gonna do. No one's gonna stop me. You know, you go home. If you go home, you'll see people living in abject poverty, the most gut-wrenching, soul-tearing poverty that they can imagine, even probably beyond their imagination. And yet, you look into the eyes of these kids, and you see that they have not given up hope. that they still have a belief in God, they still have a belief in family, they still have a belief in their own innate abilities to rise above. And then I come back home and I see in the eyes of young black kids, you know, a desire to get over, a desire to defeat the white man. It's bullshit. I mean, excuse my language, but it's bullshit. The white man is not the enemy of young blacks. They're their own worst enemy. Selling drugs to each other, the glorification of street life, the blaming of someone else instead of looking inside and saying, where have I fallen short? Has a white man did things to my people? Absolutely. Historically, absolutely. And even today, right now, I'm on this campus, and I do feel like, you know, there are certain powers to be on this campus that would victimize me if I allowed it. And they try to victimize me by judging me. They try to victimize me by, like, when they see me walking down this street, right down this street, this corridor at nighttime, they'll tend to move a little bit away. They try to victimize me when I sit in one of the lobbies late at night and some kid calls you know, the security on me. There's a strange black man sitting in the lobby. I got a ticket for that. I'm fighting the case right now because of that. I mean, but that victimization can only be complete if I embrace it. When I talk to young blacks, I tell them, don't embrace it. Don't embrace it. Reject it. Yes, it will always come. As long as we're in this land, it will always come. And I don't really see a day people was all celebrating when President Obama became president. Yeah, you know, I voted for him, and did I cry? I cried. I cried my ass off, you know, because I remember just a year earlier, or before he even started running, someone had asked me, do I think I would see a day where a black man would be the president of the United States? I said, yeah, sure. When I see an elephant fly, yeah, you know, I never thought I'd see it. So yeah, I cried. But electing a politician, because at the end of the day, he's not a black man, he's a politician. He's not a white man, he's a politician at the end of the day, and there are breeds separate than everything else. So yeah, I was happy, but that's not the end all to be all of us recognizing our freedom. Us recognizing our freedom is exactly that. Us recognizing our freedom. Not a white man signing a piece of paper saying you have been freed. Not a white man saying you can have a job over here. Does that help? Yeah. But it doesn't define my freedom. My freedom is defined by what lives inside of me. They can only really get that if they go home. If they go home to Africa. Even if they don't go home to Africa, if they go to some place where people are living in abject poverty and they see the freedom that lives in people's hearts. People who, by the way, don't have political freedom. People who, by the way, if they was open their mouth and say that the president of their country is an asshole, would probably disappear. They still a lot of times have more freedom than a lot of the young African Americans I meet here who have enslaved themselves.
What are they free from?
They are free from the self-placed chains that I think that generationally African Americans have on them. We African Americans I think is a unique breed universally, because not only were they enslaved, because lots of people have been enslaved, lots of people, but very few people. I don't know if you would look at this from a historical or anthropological or whatever the word is, but very few people in world history have ever completely had their sense of self stripped away. You take a person and you strip all of who they are, all of what makes them unique. You tear that away from them, and they lose. I think what the quality in all humans that gives us drive, that gives us actual freedom, that gives us vision to see beyond this moment. I remember a day when we were free. I remember the stories of my free ancestors. We lost all of that. We didn't even have those stories. That stuff was purposely taken away. Language, culture, stories, everything. And without that, I think that unless we rise up and recreate our own stories, either rediscover or create new stories, which some African Americans are doing that now, or some Black Americans, however you want to frame that, are doing that now, are creating new stories. I think Whoopi Goldberg is a one, Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman, whose politics I don't necessarily agree with, and Bill Cosby. Some of these guys, and even some of these, people on campus, they are creating new stories which will allow them to assert a new freedom that many of us don't have.
Let me ask you this. So you are, a large part of your identity is your race.
Yeah.
And that said, you find yourself, you're a student, you're a black student.
Yeah.
There's something about it. Let me ask about the post-traumatic stress. We'll get into the history and that later. But you got the flashbacks and the dreams and all that shit. Are you a black guy with this mental problem, or are you a guy, you're just a person who's getting...
Wow. That's a damn good question. Wow. I would have to say I'm a black guy with it. With PTSD. I'm a black guy with PTSD. When I have dreams, when I have nightmares, sometimes that is still bound up in it. That my color is still bound up in it. My race is still bound up in it. Really, even within the dreams, sometimes it is. I think every once in a while, this is going to be a weird sentence. On a good day, my dreams are I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy. On a good day, I'm just a guy. But I don't recall having too many good days like that. Most of the time, I would have to say that I'm still a black guy with PTSD, and my symptoms are bound up in that. It's quite insidious. It's horrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Well, maybe on my worst enemy, but on most people, I wouldn't wish it on them.
So talk to me about some of the crap. What are some of the more? I'm from Detroit, right? So we had 3 homicides in my high school senior year. So I'm from the intestines.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I'm damn proud of it. And I'm a white guy. I'm a Detroiter.
Yeah.
Right? So I've seen shit. And I lived in some... Anyway. Talk to me about some of the stuff that's affected your life. What's some of the shit that's hurt you?
Maybe I'll go deeper later, but I would say the first time I personally knew racism, I was in this school. I was the only black. No, my sister and I was the only black in this grade school, and in my class I was the only black in this class, and we had this substitute teacher. Now, everybody knows, kids, substitute teacher means, it's have fun, mess with the teacher, it's a free day, and we had this one kid, Rodney, I think was his name. He was the class prankster. The teacher went on a break. And these teachers back then, they used to sit on these, I always remember, I used to want one of these so bad, these green cushions. It had the webbing on it, these green cushions. Rodney thought it'd be a good idea to put these tacks under it. You know, I mean, he very carefully unzipped it and he put these tacks under it. His teacher comes back in, sits down on it, jumps up, screams, ah! The whole class busts out laughing. You know, I didn't have good control at that time in my life, so I'm laughing along with everybody else. Teacher's enraged. Who did this? Who did it? Who did it? You know, and she's trying to figure it out, and everybody's clamming up. All right. Teacher looks out. She looks at all the students, and she, you know, picks, you know, did you do that? And of course the kid was. Then she came to me, you know, did you do this? And I said, no, I didn't. I was raised, you know, to respect authority. You don't lie to authority. You don't lie to your elders. You tell the truth. I'm a kid, though. She asked, well, who did it? She wants me to rat. You don't rat. I mean, so, you know, I got two opposing, you know, things going here. You know? And so I refused to say. She says, you know who did it. You know who did it. And I wouldn't say. And her eyes, I mean, it's like in my child's mind, I can see these red eyes, blood, just like she's looking at me. And she says, you lying nigger, you did that. This was a teacher. I was in 3rd grade. That moment sticks with me, stays with me. I can see it as plain as I see you right now. I can still feel it. As I say it, as I recall it, that little boy wants to cry again. I was never the same. My life was never the same. At that, I never knew, you know. I was the prince of the family. I was the youngest, my mama's favorite, the joy to my mother, the scourge to my brothers. And I never got spankings, you know. But in that moment, I was less than human, and I knew it. And I never forgot it. I never forgot what it felt like. And I think that sometimes, to this day, and I don't think it, I know it, that I'm still adversely affected by that, and that it does affect the way that I see other people sometimes. It affects the way I interact with people. I never forgot that pain. I have never forgotten it. I've tried to let go of it. I've tried to run from it, try to hide from it, but I've never been able to shake it. I would say probably more than top 2 most hurtful things that ever happened to me, top 3 most hurtful things that ever happened to me, that had the most adverse effect of my overall life was that moment.
Can you give us some examples of how that stuck with you?
For a long time, you know, and I would say probably even still today, you know, I kind of wonder, you know, when I'm talking to a white person, what do they really think? What is it that they see when they look at me? You know, do they see me, or do they see a nigger? You're constantly questioning people I mean, a certain amount of questioning is good, but constantly it becomes pathological, becomes unhealthy. You know, while you're busy questioning, you're not getting to know a person. You're getting to know your questions better. That's all, you know, and you're missing out on the moment. You know, you might miss some beautiful moments. You know, some beautiful moments are flying right past you because you're stuck on stupid asking questions. You know, you're questioning this moment, this beautiful moment. I had a girlfriend, the first woman I ever fell in love with, half Japanese, half Irish, Pauline O'Reilly. Met her in Japan. We're good friends to this day. In fact, I was emailing her last night, and I remember when we were first together. There was times that she'd be in bed asleep, and I'd be lying next to her, and I'd be looking at her, and I would wonder, you know, who does she see when she looks at me? What is it that she sees? Does she see a man? Does she see Anthony? Or does she see that nigger? What is it? I've never been able to totally shake it. You know, I don't believe in hate. I really don't. Hate has very little. I mean, it can be utilized, you know, in a way, you know, for something good. It can be, I suppose. But generally speaking, in the most broadest sense, hate has practically zero positive, you know, qualities to it. And I can say that I pretty much hate that. I pretty much hate what that teacher did to me. I pretty much hate the way that I internalized it. I hate everything about it, you know. Yeah.
I've traveled too a lot, and I've lived. You give me a really interesting perspective. You really are, and I'd like to think that I've spent a lot of time with Africans and African Americans and blah blah blah. I've done it, but you're succeeding at providing what it's like to be on the inside as a minority. And I've been a minority living in Asia. I've been a minority living in Eastern Europe and Africa, but I'm always the privileged minority.
Yeah.
I'm always in the, you know, even when I'm a minority in Zimbabwe, but I'm one of the rich guys.
Yeah.
So I'm not.
Mzungu.
Yeah. I mean, we say the Zimbos, the black Zimbo out there, and say white is right.
Yeah.
White is right, man, and that's how they think. So it's easy for me, and I've never been on the other side of it. And that you said you may go deeper later. That was actually very deep. And that was those things that happened to us as kids. The past is never dead. In fact, it's never even past. The past isn't past.
Yeah.
It's there every friggin' day.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
But I need to ask two other stuff. And Diana shared some of it with me. And how these things, you said it's one of the two or three things, worst things. And I need to have you tell me some stories. Because then we're going to try to talk about the flashbacks and the kind of invasive thoughts and that shit.
Okay. I don't think I told her about this. I'm pretty sure I didn't. I might have danced on it. When I was in the Navy, I got in trouble. Before I tell it, because I want to frame this way, that I saw, I think it was the movie X, you know, the movie about Malcolm X, and there's a scene where Denzel Washington, you know, playing Malcolm X, he's being indoctrinated into the black Muslims, and they asked him, you know, they're telling him about white Jesus, and they're telling him about white people, and there's this point where he says, and I was just thinking about this the other day, that every bad thing that has ever happened to him, and you can see they're flashing this in the movie. They're flashing all this bad stuff. Every bad thing that ever happened to him, at the other end of it was a white person. And I was thinking about that just the other day. I was thinking about that. And the reason why I was thinking about that, it has to do with some things that are going on with me now, some things that happened to me when I first went in the Navy. My dad was in the Air Force, and I wanted nothing more than to be like my dad. My dad was, besides from a childhood idolization of a child's father. My father was a brilliant man. He was a good man. He was beloved in the community, and I wanted to be him. So I tried to go in the Air Force, but I'm partially colorblind, so they wouldn't take me. I went into the Navy, and I wanted to be the best sailor that I could be. And I remember I had this chief. They don't have sergeants, so, you know, they have petty officers. This chief, he told me to go pick up this piece of equipment. And this chief, he didn't like me. He always, and sometimes he had good reason for it. You know, I worked in what they call deck department, and that's like, you know, janitors for the Navy at that time. And I hated it. You know, it was manual labor, and I hated manual labor. I'm lazy. I don't like working with my hands. I like working with my mind. I'm a lousy janitor. I suck at it. You know, because I'm going to be figuring out shortcuts. You know, and I'm not trying to figure out how to do the best job. You know, I'm trying to figure out how to get the job done. And so, you know, he didn't really like me that much. And so he sent me to go get this equipment, and I went to our supply office to pick it up. And I was told that my chief had to sign his document for it. So I called back up to our division office, and I told them, I said, well, you know, they want you to sign this document. And he says, well, you know, I need it now. You sign it. Just sign my name. And I said, okay. So I did. I signed his name, just like he ordered me to do. That same chief later charged me with fraudulently signing his name and attempting to steal government property. I was sentenced to 60 days in the brig. I was on an aircraft carrier, USS Constellation, CV-64. I loved it. It was great. You know. The third day that I was in there, I was 18 years old. I went in the military when I was 17. Third day I was in there, like the Marines, you know, they were the guards. They would make you go to sleep standing at attention. Well, not standing, but lying at attention. It was a boot camp thing for them. You know, like when they were in boot camp, that's what they would do to them. So they would make you do that. I was lying at attention. I was the only one in the brig at the time. And this Marine guard, he came in there and with a 9mm gun, shoved it in my mouth, and told me it was time. I was dead asleep. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. It's time. It's time, you know, it's time. I'm gagging on a gun in my mouth, wondering what the hell he's talking about. And he proceeded to rape me. And for the next 50 so days, he raped me every day. He'd beat me up. He'd rape me. He'd, when I'd sleep, sometimes when he wasn't on duty, he'd find new sadistic ways to wake me up and terrorize me. I'd wake up. I mean, there was times where I wouldn't, it got to a point where I pretty much wouldn't sleep. I'd fake like it. Every once in a while, my body would just say, fuck it, and go to sleep, you know. But pretty much when I could stay awake, I'd stay awake. But when I would sleep, you know, he'd come in and he'd find some new, creative, weird, sadistic way to terrorize me. And it would always, you know, be variations of different things. And he would call me some of the worst names that man is capable of calling another human being, and he would do it while he'd rape me. I say, by the grace of God, you know, I say that now, but I would say that at that time, all that I was, possibly all that I could have been, I don't really know, changed. I've been married twice. Don't have the best relationship with my kids. Don't have an excellent relationship with myself most of the time. And it all goes back to that. You know, he tried to destroy me, you know, and in some ways I think he did. I think he succeeded. I don't really know. It's a constant fight, you know. I fight with that. Did he win? I fight with that today. Did he win? I ask myself that question. Did he win? When I don't succeed, I wonder, did he win? If I don't get an A on a paper, I wonder, did he win? I literally ask myself that question, did he win? It's hard, you know. My manhood, my humanity, everything. You know, wondering if I was gay. I mean, I don't give a damn about people that are gay. I mean, you know, it's not no thing. And it took me a long time to get there, too, to say that, you know, where, I mean, you know, being gay, you know, it was like, for a long time, I hated gay people, you know, because of that. You know, I thought that some kind of way, you know, that I must have been gay, and because that was a weakness, so I hated gay people, which I hate that he created that hate in me. I hated other human beings who are just human beings, just like I'm a human being, and I hated them because of what that guy did. I had to learn not to hate white people. I had to learn not to hate men. I had to learn not to hate myself. I still struggle with that, you know, angry at myself. And I know, like, intellectually, you know, it's like, this guy was a perpetrator, he was a predator, you know, I know that, you know, I'm a pretty smart guy. But on that gut-wrenching, you know, part that yourself that you don't really be cognizant of, you know, that kid, I was a virgin. That kid who had never knew the beauty. Uh, we're doing a film on the fabulously handsome at PSU.
Yeah, that's it.
See ya. Take care.
Have you
I,
been involved with the African Student Alliance on campus?
no. I'm good friends with one of the guys that's on there, and we've been talking about. I've been kind of interested, kind of.
What's really interesting, because I've been involved with those guys, it's really interesting because many African students, you know, want to sit just so you're comfortable. And keep an eye on it, obviously. They struggle, African students here struggle because they don't fit in with the black
Yeah, I
African
know.
guys.
Yeah.
It's a completely different culture.
Yeah.
And you would be a really good bridge because you speak both languages.
Yeah, I'm trying that now. I'm friends with both sides. I would say most of my intimate friendships are probably with my brothers from Somalia and Ethiopia. I have a real affinity for my brothers from Ethiopia. You know, I'm a Christian, I'm a pastor, you know, the whole history, you know, so, you know, there's a fascination there. And I'm probably more close to them and my brothers from the Middle East than I am from the Black Americans. But I talk to them, and then I talk to like sometimes, like, because they call me grandpa, someone call me grandpa. I'll do what I call whole school on them. I'll get a couple of the black Americans, the young ones, a couple of my brothers from the Middle East, or from Ethiopia or whatever, and I get them together and I'll talk to them. And I talk to them about the issue about why we don't communicate with each other, how do we view each other, in the sickness of that, in the fact that we are ignoring a resource, that we can be a resource to each other, in many ways, starting with just being friends, just reuniting, just getting back together and saying, hey, yeah, you my brother, let's love on each other.
So tell me, do you ever? There are three classic symptoms of PTSD: with re-experiencing the event, those kind of flashbacks, dreams,
Yeah.
like that. There's shit like avoidance. There's certain places you just don't go. There's certain thoughts you don't have. Kind of a numbness. So there's avoidance, staying the hell away from stuff. Re-experience, in spite of your best efforts, you re-experience it, and then kind of where you're always on edge. You're always waiting for the next bad thing to happen.
I still struggle with that one.
Talk to me.
But the next, it's just like a constant cloud that I push away, but it always comes back. That fucking cloud never goes away. That motherfucker follows me around like it's like my best friend. So I was in class the other day and they asked me, and they didn't know this. It was really interesting. It was an ethics class, counseling ethics, and we were talking about suicide. And so they asked me. They said, the teacher asked if I would be willing to role play with them. They were like how to interview someone around suicide. And so I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And so during the interview, he asked me, do I ever think about suicide? I said, hell yeah, I think about it. Suicide is my best friend. Suicide and I hang out. My partner, my road dog. I think about suicide every day. I think about it constantly. What he didn't know was I wasn't lying. I was role playing, but I was being me. There's a black cloud that follows me. Suicide is one of the thoughts. It never leaves me. Never. I've learned to live with it for the most part, but it is draining. It's very draining, because I know that I have to fight it. In my dark moments, and I have a lot of them. If I don't stay aware of the fact that suicide is my enemy, one of these days I'm subject to saying fuck it and embracing it, and in a moment do some real dumb shit, that I have tried in the past, and do some dumb shit, and then that's it, no more chances, But it's my companion. It's my nemesis.
Do you ever have the experience of things like reliving the experiences, whether they are your third grade teacher?
Oh yeah.
Do you ever have where it sort of intrudes into your? What's it like? Give us an example of what it's like when it sort of intrudes into your life, or your flashback, or dreams. Tell us just.
It's intruding in your thoughts. It's like being raped. It's like a violation of the highest order. You're here, I could be talking to a person, and depending on what that person's affect is, I could see that guy, I could see that teacher, and they're there. They're just sitting right there in front of me. And it's like you get this tunnel vision. Everything around you just kind of blurs, and you're transported back in time, back in space, and you're back in that moment. You're that child that was violated. You're that young man that was violated again, and your whole body feels it. You know, everything you feel it. You feel your body actually feels it. The pain, the fear, the sweats, the nervousness, the terror. It's all right there, and the person in front of you is now this other person, and they're talking, and you don't hear. You might hear. Sometimes I hear what they're saying. Many times, their words are not what they're saying. I'm hearing what they're saying, but I'm translating it. It's like speaking another language. When I used to live in Brazil, when I first came back from Brazil, I had to speak Portuguese all the time. I lived in a small town that was like Mayberry RFD in Brazil. You know, everybody spoke Portuguese. When I first came back to America, I would think I was still thinking in Portuguese. So if someone would say something to me and I would answer them, sometimes I would slip and just answer them in Portuguese. But many times I would think of the answer in Portuguese and then think of how to say it in English and then say it in English. It's this transition. And so many times, like when you're re-experiencing, you know, a trauma, it's like a person is saying something to you, you know, like you initially hear what was said to you in the traumatic, you know, like there was a lot of verbalization in my traumas, a lot of verbalization. And I would hear the words of the trauma. Then I would recognize, or I do recognize, that no, they're saying something else. Then I have to translate that into what they're actually saying. And if I'm on a good day when this happens, on a good day, I can do an accurate translation, realize that they're not saying what I thought I just heard, and I can throw away what my mind is telling me I'm hearing. But my mind is saying, you know, they're calling you nigger, or, you know, like when this guy, he raped me, he would call me all kinds of horrible, tar baby bitch, you're my tar baby bitch, or you some of it I don't even want to say, to be honest with you. But he would say these horrible things to me, and someone's saying something to me. They're not saying anything really necessarily horrible, but maybe they're angry at me, or they're saying something I don't like, and I'm hearing those other words. And I have to tell myself, they're not saying what you're hearing in your head. What you're hearing in your head, that's your head. That's a memory of something else. That's not what that person is saying to you. And I have to consciously tell myself that. It's tiring. It wears you out. You know, you walk away from that. I had a situation like that yesterday, in fact. And when I was in this office, and this lady was saying something to me. By the time this woman got done with me, because what she was saying to me was not in my favor, and it was some bad stuff and some things I have to go deal with. I went tear-assing out of that office. I mean, when I say I went tear-assing, I'm not talking about quickly walking out. I'm talking, I literally ran out, and I'm pretty sure, and I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure I actually knocked somebody down. I ran out. I ran over one of these sky bridges. And then here comes suicide, you know. Suicide's like, oh yeah, here's one of our moments, you know, we might be able to win. And I'm running across the sky bridge, and the suicide thoughts was like, you could just keep running and just jump right over this thing. So I swear, I could see myself doing it. I could say, yeah, all I would have to do when I get about 5 feet away, just take one bound. 1.5 seconds later, all of this pain will be over. And I won't have to think about it. All of those thoughts from Smith, from the Sky Bridge in Smith to the Graduate School of Education, from that, in that space, all those thoughts, I could jump over. And I ran in. So luckily, obviously I didn't. And I ran in. And I ran up to see my advisor, who I have a great affection for. And I ran in, and he was in a meeting, and he could see it in my face. This dude he's in a very bad place, So he closed his meeting out, and he saw me, but I was shaking, I was sweating, I was in trauma. I was in trauma. I was in that moment. I was in trauma, and and I had to tell myself, the things that I thought I heard, I really didn't hear. I had to play back what was actually said to me. I had to push aside the suicide thoughts. It wears you down.
You ever have bad dreams?
Yeah, not as much anymore. Not as much anymore. I thank God for that.
Start with, I don't have as many bad dreams as I
Yeah, I don't have as many night terrors, nightmares, bad dreams as I used to. Every once in a while I still do. But I used to have night terrors where I would relive things, and I'd wake up. And I learned this great therapist taught me some techniques, grounding techniques. But yeah, I would, sleep wasn't my friend either. I didn't like sleep. I still stay up way too late at night, because it's still, it's kind of ingrained in me. So I'm hesitant to, and now it's just a part of my DNA. I don't go to sleep until I have to, but it used to be I wouldn't, because I knew what was waiting for me. The bad dreams were waiting for the night. I call them night terrors. This counselor taught me that term, night terrors. The night terrors were waiting. They were waiting. They hung out and they waited for me to shut my eyes and go to sleep. And every once in a while, they didn't even wait for me to go to sleep. They just waited for me to shut my eyes and get relaxed. And here they come. Yeah. And I still have them every once in a while now.
Have you found any tricks, like staying away from environments that make the thoughts come into your head? There's things, I interviewed a guy once who would drive, this is in D.C., and there was a short route home, taking 20 minutes. It took about an hour and a half because he had to go around the whole city of Arlington. He wanted to be anywhere near Arlington National Cemetery.
Wow.
And he did the most absurd things, but they took care of him.
Mine is a little weird, and sometimes I wish it was a little that easy, that easy, right? Because that ain't easy, But mine had a lot to do with being in closed spaces, things like that. And when I would do job interviews and meetings and things like this, I'd have to scout out the places. I'd have to find out, where it's going to be, what the room looks like, what the seating arrangements were going to be. And if I could, which I always found a way to do it, I would manipulate the seating in such a way that there's a clear path between me and the door, with no one or nothing in between me and the door. And I still do that more subconsciously than anything now, but every once in a while, on purpose. But yeah. So yeah,
I think that goes back to.
that goes back to when I was in the brig. The way the brig was arranged, they had me, this guard, when he would come in, he was between me and the door, between me and the main door. It wasn't like a cell door, it was a regular door, and he was always between me and that damn door. And I guess I always had the thought that if I could have run out that door, maybe I could have escaped, but he was always between me and the door. And sometimes I'd be looking at the door, and when he would catch me looking at the door, he would beat me. And and he would tell me, "Don't even think about it." You know, he said, "If you even try to make it to that door, by the time you get to that door, there's going to be a bullet in the back of your head." And one of the games he would play, I'd wake up sometimes. He'd have the gun in my mouth, and he would be pulling back the chamber, and I'd wake up. And sometimes he'd have it just like in my ear, and I'd wake up, and I'd hear that sound, you know. And so it's like something between me and the door is not, you know, is not a good thing. You know, someone between me and the door is definitely, it's not good for that person to be. It's not so bad anymore. It used to be a lot worse. I mean, you could really find yourself in a bad way, you know, being between me and the door. It's just like really kind of a dangerous spot to be for another person.
Do you ever just find yourself not feeling stuff, numbness, just kind of, you do that, or do you feel things a lot?
I feel things a lot. I overfeel things. I feel like I'm a raw nerve. Sometimes, and it's destroyed many relationships. Someone might say something to me, and they might criticize me, and it might be legitimate criticism, or it might just be their opinion. And their opinion is not like they're trying to destroy me or anything, but they're just, you know, I think you're an asshole, you know. But you know, and I might have been an asshole, or that's just their opinion. But I take it like you know, you just called me the worst thing in the world, and I'm just like this subhuman being. And you know, some people are motivated like with grades. You know, you have a phenomenon in academia that's, especially among young people, you know, overachievers. They don't do well. You know, if they don't get an A, it's like they're really upset and stuff like that. I don't get an A, or if I don't do as well as I knew I could have done, it's like the message to me is I'm horrible. I'm less than human. I'm bad. I'm terrible. And if someone says something to me, even if their inflection sometimes they don't mean anything by it, but their inflection, I get the feeling that they're not happy with me. If someone's not happy with me, it's because I'm bad. It's not because I did a bad thing. It's because I am bad. Yeah, you know.
Can you think of a time when you jump? Are you jumpy that way? You startle easy? When you get on it,
sometimes. Not, it used to happen a lot. Sounds. Matter of fact, sounds like clicking sounds. Like even something as simple as the lighter flicking. It would remind me of what it sounds like when you pull back the hammer on a gun. And you know, someone could make that simple sound. Like, what the hell? You know, what was that? A door shutting. If I'm very relaxed and off guard and not really aware, like I'm usually very, very aware. I did a little exercise where I'm usually very aware of what's going on around me. Like you know, the conversation is going on to my left. I'm very aware of how many people are over there, how many people are walking right over here right now. You know, if I'm not mistaken, there's someone with a dog over here right now. Someone with a backpack just passed, and a couple other people that are right up here. Someone just came out of that door. I'm usually very aware of these things. When I allow myself not to be aware of those things, and a door shuts, I can find it very startling. And I've gotten pretty good where, unless you're watching me, you may not see it. You know, you may not see my response. I've gotten pretty good at hiding my response, but the response internally is there. I'll still, you know, but you may not see it anymore. I've gotten pretty good at hiding things.
I'm going to ask you a question I've never had the balls to ask before. All right.
Now, I'm not going to promise an answer.
You don't have to, but it's really friggin' interesting because I have interviewed a number of women, and to ask this question of a woman would be insensitive. But here's the issue. You're in a sexually abusive relationship with this guy. Okay? Repeatedly. How does it affect you? Because you know what? Being touched fucking feels good. And the first time, how do you deal with something being oppressive and abuse of power, and at the same time it gets all fucked up with your brain, and it feels good, and it's sexual, and it's tension, and it's does that produce guilt or confusion, or what does that do?
Guilt, confusion, anger, everything. A wave of emotions in the way that you feel, in the way that you see yourself. One of the reasons why I've been married twice and relationships go through me like water is for a long time it's hard for me to fully enjoy intimacy. You know, there's like, if someone a woman could touch me and I could, are they trying to manipulate me? You know, I'm wondering, is this person trying to manipulate me? Are they trying to get me to feel good so they can get something from me? Or other times I'm not supposed to feel good, or I just want this, I just want this to be over. In other times, in the worst scenarios, I just want this to be over. I remember I was with my wife, and she was a great woman. She was, you know, a good person. But sometimes when I would sleep with her, I just wanted it to be over. I just wanted the deed to be done. You know, and I'm having sex. I just want it to be over. I want it to be finished. I don't want to do this, but I just this sense of obligation. You know. And I just wanted to be done with. And then as far as like the way I felt about things that happened, I mean, you know, like the confusion around that. I mean, there was times, I mean, it's weird. I'm talking about this on a fucking camera. You know, I think I've only explored this a couple of times, but there was a couple of times where I had physical responses, you know, and I would say that probably more than anything probably set up confusion and anger within myself. It's like, what the hell? And that's where the "am I gay" thing came from. You know, am I gay? You know, you had an erection. You know, this guy is violating me, and you had a friggin' erection. Are you gay? You know, I lived with that for a long time. You know, I try to learn how to walk. You know, I'm like, how am I walking? I used to ask my friend. I kid you not. At one point, I've done a lot of different things. I was in the music business. I was a disc jockey. And I became a womanizer for a little while to fight off the feelings of I must be a closet gay person, because that happened to me. And I would have my friends. I would walk, and I would say, okay, I want you to check out my walk. I would have my friends check out my walk because I didn't want to walk gay, you know. And all of that came from, you know, having a physical reaction. You know, when I would meet a gay man, you know, like, okay, you know, there's something in my voice, so let me lower it some deeper. Like, I gotta put some bass in that damn boy. You know, it's just like, you know, everything. You know, even the hand expressions. I'm very expressive. And the everything. The way I dress, everything. I studied martial arts when I was young, even before I went in the military, and I got deeper in it. Then I got involved in bodybuilding, you know, for a little while. I can't tell now, you know, but I got into bodybuilding for a while.
What I need from you is this. I need a state, because this will be, you're saying brilliant stuff, okay? But I need to make a distinction that Diana will have to include in the cut. I don't, and you've already said it, but I need it in one sentence, which says, I don't care. I have nothing against gay people.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a personal identity thing. I don't know who the fuck I am because I'm confused. And so
That's
it's
good.
not that you're judging. I don't want to be one of those bad people.
Yeah.
It's just your head is, so that kind of thing. You agree, Dee?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. You know, homosexuality, you know, people are people. I don't hate gays. I don't hate lesbians. I don't hate transgendered. Human beings are human beings. I like them if they like me. This thing that happened to me was so horrific that I didn't know who I was, what I was, and I hated myself for not knowing. I hated myself for having to question what I was constantly. I've never had anything against anyone.
Tremendous. I need a segue statement that's going to say something like, I learned a lot, something to the effect, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I learned a lot about myself when I traveled and lived in Kenya. And then just go with that. That's something, you gave us some great material there, and we're going to have to segue. Go ahead.
My greatest self, I know what it is that I'm trying to say. My greatest self-discovery came when I went to Kenya and when I lived in Kenya and learned about and lived among my people and learned about what it meant to be Kenyan, what it meant to be African, what it meant to be an African male. It was an exploration into me, and it helped me better define. It helped me define myself in a good way. It was, for the first time in my life, I could start seeing myself in a positive, for the first time in my adult life, I was able to start looking at myself and exploring the possibility that I wasn't inherently bad, that I wasn't inherently broken, that there might be something good about me, that I might have some good qualities. And I discovered most of that while I lived in Kenya.
And these are the segments, I mean, you're so articulate, you're going to make our editing a whole hell of a lot easier. There is something to the effect that what I'm hearing as an overall statement from you, Anthony, is sometimes PTSD is attributable to specific events that happen to an individual. There was a car accident, or there was a particular event in the military. But there's also a lot of people who will take the position that living as a minority person is of itself, that collection of events, those things that happen, produce the trauma. Mm-hmm. And so, to the extent that you feel comfortable saying it, I think a statement to the effect that, I think there are at least a couple of events, traumatic events that happened in my life that contributed to it. And I think, being an African American living in America, both of these things contributed to my PTSD. And if I can get that in a sentence, it's like the topic sentence in an essay. And everything else will flow out of that. So if you're comfortable with that idea, that it's both specific events and generally being an African American, if you can give me something to that effect, it'll make a cutting. But again, I never want to put words.
Yeah. And I think I know what you're looking for, and I can give it to you. I think I've experienced a lot of trauma in my life. I've known a lot of death, unfortunately, and I had these events that caused me to have PTSD. But being an African American in America, in a sense, and I'm hesitant to say this, but I believe this, I feel this way, that being African American in America in itself was a form of trauma, in the sense that I relive that trauma when I see the Republican, and I'm not trying to play politics. I grew up in a Republican family. My parents were Republicans. I happen to be a Democrat, but when I see a Republican Congress trying to stop African Americans and minorities from being able to vote today, I relive the trauma of being called a nigger when I was in the class, something that's less than. You're telling me I'm less than, so you're going to stop me from voting, and that's your reasoning for it. When I see that you don't want to relate to why the pay equity is important. Again, it's a type of trauma, makes me really live a trauma. It says to me that I must be less than, inherently less than, because you're trying to hold me down. I really live the trauma of being called these horrific names. When I see when I see the President of the United States, whether you love him or hate him, I'm a military man, you know, I believe that the President of the United States, he's my commander in chief. Even if I don't agree with some of his policies, I'm still to give him a certain amount of due respect. But when I see the President of the United States dressed up in a cartoon as Adolf Hitler or a monkey or some subhuman thing, you know, and that's a black man who's the President of the United States, I'm re-traumatized by the stuff that happened to me in my childhood, by the stuff that happened to me when I was sitting in that brig, because they were treating me at that moment as though I was subhuman, and now I see the President of the United States being treated as subhuman. It's a reliving of a trauma. In as much as I identify with this black skin and trauma being related to this black skin, it is a form of PTSD. It's a form of PTSD symptomology, you know, seeing these things going on around me.
Outstanding. I'm going to ask one more question, then D, if you want to ask some questions.
Pretty low on battery.
Okay. 5 years from now? 20 years from now, dude.
5 in 10? Or 5 in 20?
5 years, who are you going to be?
Well, 5 years from now, if I haven't given, you know, and I'm laughing when I say this, but unfortunately, it's my reality. If I haven't blown my head off, if I haven't killed myself in 5 years, you know, I'd like to have my doctorate. I'd like to be working with other veterans that have gone through things that I've gone through. I'd actually like to have my own clinic where that we're specializing in working with veterans who have suffered various types of trauma. And then I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go back to Africa, and I want to get a little mud hut with a bunch of land around me, and drink traditional beer out of a straw and watch things grow. Watch life around me, watch plants grow and animals grow and things like that.
Can you heal?
I don't know. I wish I knew the answer to that.
You don't know what? Because they're not going to hear my question. I don't know.
I don't know if I can heal. I want to, and I ask myself that all the time. I ask myself if I'll ever be completely whole, and I don't know. Today I'm not completely. I put on a pretty good show, you know, but I can't let anybody too close to me else they'll see the truth, you know. I'm broken, but I don't know if I can heal. I want to heal, but I really don't know.
Thank you. What we have to get are shots of his hands, both from the front and from the back, various kind of cutaways. So how much battery time do you think I have?
10, 20 minutes.
Okay, we'll get other B-roll another time. And so let's, that was very, very generous of you. You've done a really terrific job doing this.
Actually quite therapeutic. Yes. Got lots to talk to my counselor about now.
Just like warming up.
You see anybody at VA?
Yeah.
Where do you go?
Right